Greetings, Magic community. Before we start today, I think we need to have a serious conversation. Because I've been having a great time playing Modern Horizons 3 Limited, but I keep seeing people make hyperbolic claims. And I want to set the record straight. Whirling Chrysalis is a good card. It's a great card, even. The fact that it's a common is kind of absurd. However, it is not ruining the format. I keep seeing people say things like it needs to be banned in limited, and that is mind blowing. I had a much worse time playing against Bonnie Paul in Outlaws of Thunder Junction than I do playing against Whirling Chrysalis in Modern Horizons 3. There's a number of reasons for that. The biggest one is that Outlaws of Thunder Junction was the kind of set where there was a lot of big, powerful bombs going on, and you needed to get some of those if you wanted any chance to compete. Modern Horizons 3 isn't like that. Modern Horizons 3 is a synergy format, and the more synergistic your deck is, the less it matters if your opponent casts Whirling Chrysalis. The thing with Whirling Chrysalis is, in a synergy set, it's a card that you can't fail to build around correctly. It's just good. It has a high ceiling, it has a high floor, it's tough to mess up. Cast it, you get 3 bodies, one of them gets really big and has a bunch of keywords on it. It's really good. But if you built a really synergistic energy deck, or a really synergistic aggro deck, it's not the end of the world if your opponent casts Chrysalis. It's not unbeatable. At the end of the day, it's really just a 5/6 with reach. And if you can play around that, you're going to be okay. A lot of people have cited 17 lands data. I love 17 lands. I am part of their patron. But one of the inherent weaknesses of 17 lands game in hand win rate stat that everyone quotes is that the more synergistic a set is, more importantly, the more synergistic a card is within your deck, the less reliable 17 lands game in hand win rate is, because the easier it is to build a deck that does not showcase that card correctly. Again, Whirling Chrysalis sort of sidesteps that in a synergy set by being a really easy card to play and build around. There are other things in the format. Branch out. Try other stuff. Try not drafting Chrysalis at all, and see if you can build a deck that's synergistic. I promise, Whirling Chrysalis is not the end of the world. Anyway, I'm Mike from MTG Scribe, and it's my party. I'll news if I want to. And actually, before we even get into the news, we have some breaking news that I haven't seen anyone talk about that I have been able to confirm. I've heard rumors for a while now that a certain Hall of Famer is going to come back to the Pro Tour for Modern Horizons 3. But I have not seen it confirmed anywhere. Just rumors. Having said that, I investigated and looked at the invite list for Pro Tour Amsterdam. And what I found is kind of shocking. That's right. Hall of Famer, and to a lot of people, greatest Magic player of all time, John Finkel, has been invited to the Pro Tour and is using his Hall of Fame invite to play. Again, I haven't seen this announced anywhere. So as far as I'm aware, this is breaking official news. John Finkel will be at Modern Horizons Pro Tour in about a week and a half. That's something to watch. Now, news continues to be a little bit slow this week. It should pick up next week. We've got the Pro Tour next week. We've got the ban and restricted announcement on Monday that is supposed to focus on Standard. I'm not sure if they're going to do anything on Monday. It doesn't really seem like they need to. I wouldn't be upset, though, if they decided to lower the bar for what is bannable in Standard for cards that are entering their last year. So cards that would have rotated out normally. So in this case, Dominaria United, Brothers War, Phyrexia Obi-Wan, and March of the Machine. If they want to lower the bar for what constitutes a ban for cards from those sets, I'm okay with that, actually. I think that is sort of an interesting idea. If that's the case, I think Atraxa gets banned, possibly Shieldred, possibly Leon of the Veil, cards that have been ubiquitous the last couple of years. To do a better job of shaking things up going into the first ever rotation, the 3-year ban window. I wouldn't be upset by that. I think that makes a lot of sense, and I think it would make Standard interesting in a way that I can't say that it isn't now, because it is pretty interesting right now, actually. Standard has been pretty good. So if they do nothing, I also think that's fine. But if they do anything, I think that's probably the reason why. But we'll see on Monday. We'll talk about that next week. But for now, let's talk about the Magic Online Pauper Creator Showdown that happened on Saturday. This was the first major Pauper tournament since Modern Horizons 3 came out. So Cranial Ram's pre-release banning did affect this tournament. Well, you'd think that it would, but the tournament was won by El Gran Boa's Grixis Affinity deck, and he actually beat Gabe Nassif in the finals. The deck lists for this event can mostly be found on mtgdecks.net. I'll post a link down in the description of this video. They don't have all of them for some reason. I'm not 100% sure why, but at least 48 of them are there, including the winning Grixis Affinity list. An interesting fact about this tournament is that all 64 players in it streamed their perspective on their own Twitch channels or YouTube or wherever they stream. So if you want to watch the entire tournament, you can actually go ahead and do that. I'm going to post a link to the official Magic Online YouTube account, which has all of the official coverage. I believe it was a 5.5-hour stream. So I'm going to list that in the description, and if you want to check that out, highly recommend it. It was a great tournament, incredibly fun to watch, and once again, congratulations to El Gran Boa for taking the whole thing down. And speaking of great tournaments, we also had the Birds of Paradise 1K Standard Open on Sunday. This was won by Azim Lyons on a red-green aggro list, beating out Sasha Kopany. I'm probably saying that wrong. I'm really bad with names. In the finals. This had a number of games streamed with commentary on them. Those are all on Nile Jordan Rivers' YouTube account. There's at least one game in every round. I'll go ahead and post a link to that in the description of this video as well. You can find the deck lists on the MTG Melee page for that event. I'll post that description in the video I'll post that link in the description as well. And you can take a look at all of those lists. Again, Standard has been really good. This whole tournament was super fun, and the coverage of it was really well done. This was announced as part of a series, so as soon as I have information on when the next tournament in the series is, I'll let you know. I believe they're all open tournaments, so if you want to join, you should be able to do so. And I love supporting competitive Magic. Again, great tournament, really well run, super fun to watch. Standard, really fun. So hopefully we'll see that next tournament pretty soon. Now, the second to last thing I want to talk about is how I'm going to be covering Pro Tour Modern Horizons 3. Last time we had a Pro Tour, on my Twitter account, I posted standings round by round that were spoiler free. So as soon as commentary and coverage made it clear they're moving to the next round, I would post the full standings of the entire tournament. Unfortunately, this tournament, being in Amsterdam, is going to be covered starting at 5 a.m. my local time on Friday and Saturday, and 4 a.m. on Sunday. And I will not be able to cover it round by round like I did that time. So I'm trying to figure out what I want to do instead. And what I've come up with is I think I'm going to put out a video at the end of each of those days. So on all of them, what I'll do is I'll go over the standings for the day. I'll go over what the top decks are, although I won't do any kind of meta breakdown. That's not really in my wheelhouse. And there are people far better at that than I am. But I will look at a bunch of the 3-0 limited decks, because that's a thing that I think goes underreported a little bit. And we should have at least the featured table of that, if not one or two other ones. Sometimes they post more than one of just the 3-0 decks, if not the entire pod. So we're going to look at some notable names and see how they're doing. And depending on the day, there's a little bit extra. So for Friday, what I want to do is I want to take a look at the adjusted match point or AMP rankings. As a reminder, the top 32 players in AMP standings who do not already have a Worlds invite will get an at-large Worlds invite for finishing the top 32. We can talk about AMP scores next week a little more detailed, and we'll go over how things are looking going into the tournament and who is in contention for those spots. But for now, it's enough to say that we will look at those on Friday. We'll also take a look at what the featured pod will be on Saturday. So the way they do pods on day 2 of a Pro Tour is it's in strict standing order. So the number 1 through number 8 in the standings at the end of day 1, that'll be the featured pod the following day. And last time they had a second featured pod, so we'll take a look at both of those and see which 16 players are going to be in those featured pods. So we know who we're going to be watching on Saturday morning when coverage starts. And then on Saturday, I'm going to go over the final AMP standings. At that point, we'll have our top 8 for this Pro Tour, which means the top 32 will be fixed, and we'll know all 32 players are getting those at-large bids. So we'll go over that. We will go over the Player of the Year standings. I've taken that off of my AMP spreadsheet, which I will link next week. I'm not going to link it this week because I need to do a little bit more work on it. There was an issue that came up where my Player of the Year standings were incorrect. And it turns out that there was an issue with the scoring on the official website laying out the scores. It doesn't, it omits a specific piece that's sort of important. So I'm fixing that now. By the time we get to next week, we'll have that in full. Again, next Thursday, we'll go over that going into the Pro Tour so we can take a look at how things currently stand. And then on Saturday night, we'll go over how things are looking and how things have progressed over the first 2 days. The standings will, of course, change depending on how the top 8 finishes on Sunday. So on Sunday, we'll go over that again, and that'll be the final Player of the Year standings going into Worlds, which will be happening in October. Also on Saturday, we'll look at the top 8 players and see how they've done, look what decks there are, and we'll go over their specific limited rounds, even though it doesn't really matter going into Sunday. I think it's interesting to look at how they did in limited versus constructed. And then Sunday, I'll recap the tournament overall. And as I said, give a final update on the Player of the Year standings heading into Worlds in October. And if there's anything else people want to see, please let me know in the comments. I'm happy to provide additional coverage if it is helpful to people. I'm especially happy to do that if there's something that you want to see covered that you don't really see covered anywhere else. That's sort of why I want to look at the limited decks and the AMP standings and Player of the Year and all of that. I know that's not typically covered very often, so I'd like to offer as close to real-time updates on those kinds of things as possible. And if there's anything else that you can think of that you would want to hear about or see, let me know, and I'll see what I can do. Then, as always, we finish with a forecast for the week ahead. Coming on the 21st, so tomorrow, at the time I'm recording this, their complete Assassin's Creed image gallery will be complete. I've been looking at the previews a little bit, and if you're someone who's concerned about this release because you think that it'll affect Modern in a meaningful way, I don't think you need to be concerned. I think there's maybe 2 cards that will have any real effect on Modern, and even then, it's a big maybe. It's possible none of the cards have an effect on Modern. So I think that if you're not an Assassin's Creed fan, or if you're the kind of person who doesn't like Universes Beyond in general, you can probably pretty safely ignore this. That might not end up being true. Just keep an eye out for anyone saying, "Oh, wait a second, this card might do something in the next week or so." But I have a suspicion that none of them are really going to matter all that much for Modern. Commander for casual games, if you love Assassin's Creed, different story. I hope you really enjoy them, but I don't think they're really going to matter that much. Also on the 21st, we get the start of Quick Draft for Modern Horizons 3. That is going to be running until, I don't know why it's not hovering over, until July 2nd. So if you like Quick Draft and you want to play Modern Horizons 3, jump on that. Then this weekend, we also have the Arena Open, which is going to be Modern Horizons 3 Sealed, followed by the ban and restricted announcement on Monday. Again, this is the one that is going to be more standard focused And they have said, even though this is happening the week of a Pro Tour, there's virtually no chance that anything in Modern will be touched. And it's unlikely that anything other than Standard will be much discussed. I believe they said they might brush over Pioneer a little bit. I don't expect them to do anything for Pioneer since we're in the middle of the RCQ season, but we'll see. On the 26th is the midweek Magic event, Historic Artisan, so historic legal cards of uncommon or lower rarities. And then the following weekend, we have both the Magic Presents Pride event happening at LGS stores, specifically WPN stores, where they're going to have a special commander event where you can have your commander can be partner with any other commander. So if you have two commanders, you love the idea of them being together in a deck, go for it. This is the time to do it. The Historic Metagame Challenge also happens on the 28th, and of course, that is the start of Pro Tour Modern Horizons 3, which, as we learned earlier, John Finkel will be attending, which is noteworthy. And that is it for the forecast. We'll be right back for the outro. So that's it for the news this week. I'll be back on Tuesday, as always, with another episode of Road to the RCQ. I am going to continue playing Waste Not. Hopefully it goes better this time. Hopefully the last episode, if you haven't watched yet, ends up being the extreme low point of the series because I did not end up feeling particularly great about Waste Not at the end of that episode. So maybe Tuesday will go better. But otherwise, I will be back next week for more news. And then the following weekend during the Pro Tour, I'm going to put out 3 separate videos that weekend covering the Pro Tour as best that I can. So hopefully you'll join me for that. Until next time, good luck, and I hope tomorrow's a better day for you.